You've likely heard a lot of people say your house is your crucial investment. There's a hidden truth about the so-called American dream that nobody likes to talk about. We're told over and over that buying a home is the ultimate sign of success, the smartest investment you'll ever make. But what if that dream is actually a trap? What if it's a story carefully crafted by banks and the financial system to keep us spending, borrowing, and believing? Think about it. From childhood, we're taught that the size of your house, the car you drive, and the prestige of your job define whether you've made it. But those same things can also bury you under a mountain of debt, locking you into a financial hole that feels impossible to escape. Scroll through the internet, and you'll see the same message from every money guru: renting is for losers. You're just burning cash when you could be building equity. They'll tell you real estate only goes up. They'll swear buying is the smartest thing you can do. But is it really? Let's put the belief to the test. Imagine a house priced at $500,000. We're going to compare what it actually costs to buy it versus renting it. And this time, we're including all the hidden expenses that usually get swept under the rug. If you buy that $500,000 home with 20% down, you're shelling out about $115,000 up front for the down payment and closing costs. Then comes the monthly hit, around $2,489 for the mortgage alone. But wait, the bills don't stop there. Property taxes, homeowners insurance, and maintenance pile on another $1,229 per month. All told, you're spending roughly $3,718 every month just to own that home. Now let's look at renting the exact same place. The rent is about $2,500 a month, plus maybe $20 for renter's insurance. That's suddenly, you're keeping about $1,200 more in your pocket every single month by renting instead of buying. And yet, this is the point where every financial guru jumps in screaming, "But equity!" And sure, equity matters, but only if the math actually works out. Here's the catch with building equity. People love to say, every mortgage payment makes you rich. But in reality, most of that payment in the early years isn't even touching your loan balance. It's feeding the bank's interest. In our example, it's eye-opening. Out of that $2,489 mortgage payment, about 85% is just interest. Only around $364 actually chips away at your $400,000 loan. So you're paying an extra $1,200 each month compared to renting, just to build a measly $400 in equity. That's not exactly the one-for-one wealth building we're promised online. Of course, rent usually goes up every year, and so do home prices. So yes, if you hold onto the property long enough, you'll likely sell it for more than you paid. But the keyword is long enough. And most first-time buyers don't stay put that long. On average, they move within 2 to 5 years. When that happens, the math gets even uglier. Let's keep playing out our example. Say you bought this house, lived there for 5 years, and then moved. Each year the home's value rises by 3.5%, and rent climbs by 3%. Both realistic numbers. After 5 years, the house is worth about $593,845. Sounds great, right? Except in those 5 years, you've only paid down about $24,000 of the mortgage. When you go to sell, even if you actually get $593,000, your take-home after closing costs would be roughly $182,264. Now compare that to renting. If you never put that $100,000 down payment into the house and instead invested it, plus the $1,200 you saved every month by renting instead of owning, with a modest 5% annual return, your portfolio after 5 years could be worth around $270,000. So roughly speaking, you'd walk away with about $25,000 more cash if you rented instead of bought. These are rough estimates, of course, but they show how different the outcomes can be. Does that mean renting forever is the golden ticket and buying a home is always a bad move? Not at all. Renting has its own headache, but it does mean that automatic wealth building. Story behind homeownership isn't as simple as it sounds. Renting a place may look simple on paper, but it comes with its own set of frustrations. You don't always get a say in what happens. Want to paint the walls? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. And when your lease ends, your landlord might not renew it, forcing you to move. Over a 5-year stretch, even just 1 or 2 surprise moves can quickly eat into that $25,000 advantage we talked about earlier. And of course, when you rent, you're not building equity. Those monthly payments feel like they're vanishing into thin air with nothing to show for it. But here's the twist people rarely think about. Owning a home isn't completely different. In both cases, you're paying a monthly fee to live in a space. The only question is where that money flows, to a landlord or to a bank. Either way, you're exchanging cash for a roof over your head. At the end of the day, the choice between buying and renting really comes down to one thing. How much control and flexibility do you want in your life? Because if you look at it purely through a financial lens, the story isn't as straightforward as this. Buy a house, get rich mantra you see online. Real estate gurus love to sell the idea that the housing market only goes up. But even when prices rise, the end result isn't always the fairy tale you're imagining. We've all heard those nostalgic stories about boomers who bought a house in 1958 for $12,000, and now it's worth over $1 million. Sounds like an incredible win, right? On paper, but that's not how the math really works. First, adjust for inflation. That $12,000 home in 1958 is the equivalent of about $133,281 in 2025 dollars. So if Grandpa sells it for $1 million today, the real gain is closer to $865,000. Still nice, but the story isn't over. A house isn't a stock sitting in a vault. It's a living space that wears out. Over 67 years, there are roofs to replace, air conditioners to swap, kitchens to update. Maintenance alone averages around 2% of the home's value each year. Using the home's average value over those decades, that's roughly $678,400 in upkeep. Add rising property taxes, selling costs, and all the other little expenses of ownership, and suddenly Grandpa's profit drops to about $249,960, a far cry from the $1 million windfall the headlines suggested. And I'm not showing you these numbers to bash homeownership. A house can be a wonderful thing, a place to raise a family, paint the walls any color you want, put down roots. But as an investment, even holding it for over half a century wouldn't have created enough to retire comfortably. That same $12,000 placed in the S&P 500 back in 1958 would be worth over $10.5 million by 2025. That's why it's dangerous to think of a home the way you think of a stock, something you buy low and sell high to strike it rich. A home is first and foremost a lifestyle choice. It can build stability, comfort, and memory, but it's not the automatic wealth machine we've been taught to believe. Buying a home isn't just about chasing investment return. In reality, a house gives you something much more basic but valuable: stability. It's about planting yourself in a location you love and staying there for years, while you build real wealth outside of your walls. Yes, your home's value will probably rise over time, but as we saw in our example, that increase usually just keeps pace with inflation. And that's perfectly fine as long as you're not treating your house like a stock that needs to hit 5% returns every single year. So when does it actually make sense to buy instead of rent? In today's economy, it feels like there's no perfect move. You either overpay for a home you might not keep long enough to see a return, or you rent, save money, but feel like you're throwing cash into the wind. The truth is, there's no universal yes or no. The right answer depends on you, your lifestyle, your goals, your stage of life, and where you want to live. Forget the noise about interest rates or headlines about housing bubbles. Start by asking yourself, am I sure I want to stay in this area for at least the next 10 years? Am I comfortable taking on unexpected repair costs and maintenance? Or do I value the freedom to move, experiment, and keep my costs predictable? If you're unsure where you'll be in the next decade or don't want the headache of repair, renting may be the smarter play. But if you're settled, love the area, want control over your space, and are ready to commit long-term, and the numbers work, then buying could be right for you. The key is to check your personal preferences first, and then look at your finances, not to judge the investment potential, but to make sure you're not spending beyond your means or locking yourself into a trap. Homeownership rewards patience. The only way to enjoy the long-term benefits is to hold onto the property long-term. So if you're on the fence, start with these questions. They'll tell you more about whether you're ready to buy than any headline or online guru ever could. Before you sign on the dotted line, stop and ask yourself a few honest questions. Am I ready to live in this house for at least the next 10 years? Will the monthly payment stay under 25% of my gross income? Do I actually have 20% saved for the down payment? Am I okay if the home's value drops instead of rises? And most important, am I genuinely excited about this purchase? You can tick all the financial boxes above, but if that last answer isn't a clear yes, pump the brake. Don't buy a home just because you feel pressured or because the math looks good on paper. If the idea of homeownership doesn't light you up now, it will feel even heavier when the inevitable repairs and costs start rolling in. Buying a house is one of the biggest financial moves you'll ever make. Take the time to break it down, weigh it carefully, and only step in when it truly makes sense for you. And never forget, a home is not a magic investment vehicle. It's an asset you purchase to shape your lifestyle, not your shortcut to retirement riches. If this video helped you see the decision differently, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. I've got more videos coming that will help you make smarter money moves and avoid the traps everyone else is falling into.